Is ET to the G, and I'm here with at the Chef Rosan, one half of Team Hallenzano. I'm the other half. Well, we in here because this is my favorite one right here because this is actually a Mr. Ballin reaction that the Chef Rosan has picked for us today. You know what they do say though? They do say in America right now there's thousands of active serial killers that we don't know about though.
That's true.
They do say that. But anyway, this title of Mr. Ballin episode is going to be The Serial Killer You've Never Heard of. She wanted to watch this, and I wanted to watch it too, just because I want to know what city they're going to talk about, what state, like, you know, and what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know even where or
exactly
kind of
who's targeting, or if it's a him, a woman, like we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. Can be even a woman.
Right. So
because honestly, there is a lot of serial killers.
Right. There is actually.
People always thinking, oh, it's a big man or no.
Sometimes it's women.
Sometimes it's a woman.
Mm-hmm. So without wasting time, though, we're going to get straight into it. Let's go.
Today, we're going to look at one of the most unbelievable revenge stories I've ever come across, but you won't even know that it's a revenge story until the very end. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. Okay. So if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is out of town, secretly bug their house with cameras and microphones, and then live stream those feeds on the billboards in Times Square, New York. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all be doing the like button kind of greasy on this show. Don't do anything to our like button except just touch it. You know what I mean? Just touch it 2 times. You know what I'm saying? And we appreciate you. Don't do nothing. Don't set my like button up for failure.
Notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into
today's
story.
Side scoop.
In the early evening of May 7th, 2008, a 65-year-old woman named Savannah Temelkoska walked around.
Yeah, I would say like 50 something.
Yeah, I'm like, she looked good for 65. And this is before the whole airbrush and Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looked
good. That's like a real picture.
Yeah. She looked good for 65.
Under kitchen inside of her apartment in the little southeastern European city of Kosovo. Kosovo is a quiet place at the base of this huge mountain in northern Macedonia. And while it's totally beautiful, it's utterly remote. And
I'm sorry, I am very ignorant geographically. Do you want to tell me where Macedonia is?
I was going to say.
Oh, yes? Okay, cool.
Europe.
It's in Europe. Oh, see.
I'm in northern Macedonia. And while it's totally beautiful, it's utterly remote. And basically nothing really of note happens here. Okay. Savannah cleaned houses for a living, but on this particular day, she was on a day off, and so she was just kind of hanging out at her apartment, waiting for her adult son, named Zoran, to come home. It was a beautiful, warm evening that night, and so Savannah had the windows in the kitchen open as she walked around, making herself something to eat.
That sounds like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to negate what's going on with the seriousness of this, but if you got a name like Zoran, I feel like you were born on the planet of Krypton or some shit. Like,
yeah.
You're supposed to be here with powers, bro.
Superman brother.
Right, yeah. You know what I mean? Zor-El. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Zoran. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's crazy. They got some interesting names in UK?
No. Macedonia.
Oh, Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
That night, and so Savannah had the windows in the kitchen open as she walked around, making herself something to eat. And at some point, as she was doing this, she heard her phone ring. And so she grabbed it and answered, and she heard the sound of her friend on the other line. Okay. But her friend's voice sounded strange. It was strained and very uncomfortable. And she was asking Savannah if she was paying attention to the news right now. Did she have the radio on or the TV? And Savannah was like, no, why? And the friend would tell her that all over the news right now, there was this huge, terrible traffic accident that had happened in their town. And unfortunately, Savannah's son, Zoran, who she was waiting for to come home, was apparently involved in this accident.
Oh.
Savannah let out a strangled cry when she heard this, and then just dropped what she was using to make food and turned and ran out the door. And when she did, her neighbor who was outside saw her emerge and yelled out to her, hey, is everything okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Savannah, as she literally just continued running towards the road, she basically blurted out to the neighbor that her...
That's crazy. As a mother or a parent, like, when you hear your child is in danger, like, you don't even have any kind of common sense. Like,
No, he just ran.
you're
That's
just like,
it.
I'm gonna go get to my baby. Like,
Yeah.
probably ran right past the car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
but
Like,
you went, yeah.
just like, I'm going to get to my
I'm going
baby.
there,
That's
yeah.
it. Like, I'm no common sense involved. All adrenaline,
Yeah.
shock. Yeah, endorphins. Man, I could tell you
Yeah.
as a parent, like you yeah.
You would just go there.
Yeah,
My baby needed me.
yeah, that's all you're feeling, all you're thinking. And you know your neighbor's watching it, like you know your neighbor knows you. He sees you come out the house running down the street, you're like, hey, what's the deal? Hopefully he says he got a car.
Yeah.
As she literally just
I'm
continued
driving
running towards the road,
She just
she
kept
basically blurted out to the neighbor that her son was hurt and she was going to the hospital. And this neighbor watched as Savannah just ran down the road, turned the corner, and disappeared. Savannah did not have a car of her own, and so literally she was going to run to the hospital to make sure her son was okay. A little while later, that same neighbor who had just watched Savannah disappear around the corner heard a knock on their door. And so the neighbor went to the door, they opened it up, and they were totally shocked at who they saw standing outside. It was Savannah's son, Zoran, who did not appear to be hurt in any way. But before
yeah, I was gonna say definitely Krypton though, definitely Kryptonian DNA.
Yeah.
You remember when the other dude try to
Yeah.
they don't all look like Clark.
No.
He's looking a little Lou Ferrigno-ish right here in the face though.
Savannah's son, Zoran, who did not
That's
appear
crazy.
to be hurt in any way. But before the neighbor could ask any questions about this, Zoran, who looked visibly confused, said to the neighbor, hey, have you seen my mom? We were supposed to meet and have dinner together, and it's just totally unlike her to disappear without telling me where she was going. The neighbor just stared at Zoran for a second, having no idea what was going on here.
Yeah.
And then the neighbor was like, well, wait a minute, Zoran, were you in a car accident? And Zoran's like, no, what are you talking about? And then the neighbor kind of filled Zoran in about how.
Wait, so you tell? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because the woman, she said, are you watching the news? Her friend?
Yeah.
And she said, no. She's like, well, your son's in an accident. She just dropped everything and ran out the door. Like, she didn't even turn to the TV or nothing. Didn't try to. That's crazy.
That's how she knew
your son was in the accident. Yeah, exactly.
No, not even in the accident.
Yeah.
It was at the hospital. Because she said, I'm going to go to the hospital.
Well, that's the easy one. If you've been in an accident, where are you going to be?
I know, but you don't know. I mean, probably there was just one hospital.
Yeah, probably in that little small town in Macedonia. Little small town. I mean, they got names like Zoran and shit. And so I don't think they have hospital number 1 or hospital number 2, like the other video. Like when they're in Beijing, they had school number 1, school number 2. Like, I don't know, but I'm thinking that they only got one hospital.
And Zoran's like, no.
But I'm still trying to figure out why the friend did that. Oh, they said this is a story about revenge. Remember?
Yeah,
we and they said we won't find out to the end. So we can't even speculate right now.
Yeah.
We gotta just see why
what's going on.
This friend
did that.
Was real helpful with the information about your son.
And then the neighbor kind of filled Zoran in about how they had seen his mother run outside, and she had mentioned how her son.
Isn't that like a movie, like The Incredible Zoran? I feel like that's a name from something. Like maybe that movie. Yeah, maybe that movie Big with Tom Hanks, and he had to ask that genie. Or there's a name Zoran. Maybe it's I'm thinking of maybe the Ben Stiller movie. Maybe I'm thinking of some Zoran, some Zoltan. Yeah, we'll figure that out and get right with y'all. But let's figure this out.
Kind of filled Zoran in about how they had seen his mother run out.
Sorry if I stop you.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
There is a movie. It's not really Zoran, but it's Zohan.
That's what it was. It was Zohan. That's right. The Ben Stiller movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, right on top. Hey, right on time like you always do. Hell yeah. All right, cool. Bet. That movie was hilarious. I forgot. Shout out Ben Stiller, man.
Talking about. And then the neighbor kind of filled Zoran in about how they had seen his mother run outside, and she had mentioned how her son had been in this car accident, and she literally ran to the hospital. Zoran was just as mystified by this as the neighbor was. And so Zoran just grabbed his phone and called the hospital to see if his mother was there. But when the hospital picked up, they would tell Zoran that his mother was not there. She had not been there all day. And two, even though they had heard reports about this car accident in town, there had not been any car accident victims brought to the hospital at all that day. And so by the end of that night, when Zoran really had no idea what had happened to his mom, where she was, or what was going on with this car accident thing, he just did the only thing he could think to do, which was go to the police and report his mother missing. 9 days later, on May 16th.
What language is that right there on the police car?
It's Macedonian.
Oh, okay. They got their own language over there. Okay. I don't, like I said, I don't.
Which was go to the police and report his mother missing. 9 days later, on May 16th, when still Zivana was missing and the police had no idea what happened to her, there were no new leads, nothing. On this day, a 56-year-old reporter named Vlado Teneski, who actually happened to live not that far away from where Zivana lived, he got a call from one of his police sources. And the source would tell him that Zivana had actually just been found, even though this was not public information. And unfortunately, Zivana was dead. Her body, which had been beaten and strangled and stabbed, had been found wrapped up in plastic and dumped in this illegal dumping area not far from the town's football stadium. The source told Vlado that when her body was searched, they discovered she still had valuables on her person. And so that kind of ruled out the possibility that this was a robbery gone wrong, which was the initial theory about what they were seeing. However, when police had done an initial probe into Zivana's life to figure out who this victim was, they discovered that she was just this poor old cleaning lady who had no enemies to speak of. And so it really just made no sense that she was the victim of such an obviously brutal and intimate murder that was not financially motivated, at least not on the surface. Vlado thanked his source for all the information and then hung up. Vlado's source had sounded really shocked by this murder as he was telling Vlado, but now as Vlado was sitting here thinking about what he had just been told, he wasn't really shocked as much as he was suspicious. He felt like something just was off about this murder. Maybe Zivana appeared to be this poor old cleaning lady with no enemies, but in reality, maybe that wasn't who she was. Maybe she was leading a secret life that got her killed. Or maybe she had stumbled upon.
That is true, though. I was speaking with a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about how we don't think of things like that because that's not in our brain. Like things like pedophilia or things like that. Like that's not in our brain. But in those type of people, in their brain, like when we watch that TV show Dexter, when his regular person was a serial killer. But he went to work. He built a whole life so he could blend in.
Yeah, it was a normal person.
Super normal. Brought donuts to work. Like, what I'm saying?
Yeah, you will never imagine.
Exactly.
It was what it was.
Exactly. So maybe this is one of those situations that he's thinking like maybe I'm not gonna say serial killer, but maybe it's one of those situations where
we still don't know about it.
That's true. And you did say women are at the end. We
still don't know about it.
Let's get a bar.
Maybe she was leading a secret life that got her killed. Or maybe she had stumbled upon something she was not supposed to see and that got her killed. Vlado had no idea, but he just felt like, what? There's something off about this and it needs to be investigated. Now, Vlado had a reputation.
These people looking good and for their age out there. You say he's 56? They don't look that bad for 56. Like the woman, she was 65. Are they eating something different? The water different?
Yeah.
Because they're not looking that bad for 50.
Eating clean.
Actual photos.
That's not America, man.
No Photoshop.
That's not America.
No Photoshop. Like, you're 56. Let's be real. In America, 56 is looking bad out here sometimes. A lot of times. 56 is looking crazy out here. Especially for the Caucasian.
There's something off about this, and it needs to be investigated. Now, Vlado had a reputation in town for being this very aggressive and kind of fearless journalist who had no problem diving headfirst into some of these really murky stories that could involve corruption or misuse of power. And he would get to the bottom of it, and he would publish these articles where he spoke really critically about the government, about police, about anybody really who was in a position of power. But as a result of conducting himself this way, over his 30-year career, Vlado had been threatened with violence many, many times for things he had written or things he was about to write. But even though Vlado knew this Zivana murder case had the potential to once again put him in hot water with the powers that be, he still felt like it was his responsibility to dive into this thing and get to the truth. So, feeling determined, Vlado grabbed his notebook and pen and he walked out the front door of his house and he made the several-minute-long walk over to Zavana's house. And when he got there, her son, Zoran, opened the door, and a few minutes later, Vlado and Zoran were sitting in the kitchen talking about what had happened. Zoran told Vlado all about how he came home and discovered his mom was...
All I'm gonna say is A&E ain't shit. It says, we got this picture courtesy of A&E. I'm like, A&E, y'all couldn't have found a better picture of your boy? Like, that's cool. He over there looking like Lurch from the Addams Family. Like, that's crazy. Like,
I was thinking that, to be honest.
Like, why you do my man's like that? His mama go missing. His mom did down bad. Like, you know what I mean? And you got my man over here. Look, man, don't do my man like that. Got Zoran.
What had happened? Zoran told Vlado all about how he came home and discovered his mom wasn't there, and then he went to the neighbor's house and they explained how, they had seen Zavana running off to the hospital to go look for Zoran, but Zoran's like, I'm not hurt, I didn't get into a car accident, what's going on here? And as Zoran spoke, Vlado took lots of notes.
Eddie Munster too. He looked like something like that. I was like Lurch. Eddie Munster. He looked like don't do my man Zoran like that, man.
Get into a car accident, what's going on here? And as Zoran spoke, Vlado took lots of notes and asked lots of follow-up questions. And by the end of this interview, when Vlado felt like he knew everything there was to know about Zavana, he felt like he actually had a pretty good working theory as to what actually happened to Zavana.
Okay.
And the reason he felt like his theory could be accurate had to do with what Zoran told Vlado his mother did for a living, that she was a cleaning lady. Now, it took Vlado a couple of days to put together his story. He had to go out and interview dozens more people in the neighborhood. But finally, on May 19th, so just 3 days after Zavana was found murdered, Vlado published a story in the newspaper. And the story's explosive headline read, "A serial killer stalks Kosovo."
Wait, what?
Did you know that?
So apparently with the research he did, he surmised that it was a serial killer that got her. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know. We're gonna figure out. Yeah, we're gonna figure out how he came up with that, because I didn't.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would think you would have to think outside the box. Like, in a situation like this, she's a 65-year-old cleaning lady. She ain't got no enemies. Like, we got to think outside the box. Yeah, but the thing is,
she's a cleaning lady, so maybe she was working for somebody who was doing something.
Yeah, I mean, that could always be
she saw whatever she's supposed to don't see.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, but I don't know. Like I said, we'll figure out where they come from.
Mysterious content. Go check them out.
This is actually, this is actually one of the ones that we've seen where we haven't been able to just guess it quickly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like this one, we're like halfway through it and still don't know.
Don't have idea completely
at all. Like, this is
in the story, Vlado says that Zavana's murder was very likely not an isolated killing. Instead, her murder was likely linked to 2 other murders of 2 other women. And these 2 other victims looked an awful lot like Zavana, literally. They were poor older women who were also cleaning ladies. And so that was why when Vlado was talking to Zoran, and Zoran described how his mother was, what she did for work, what she looked like, that Vlado started to remember these other victims, and he put it all together. The other 2 victims were 64-year-old Mitra Simjanoska, who was murdered in 2005, and the other victim was 56-year-old Lubitsa Lukoska, who was murdered in 2007. Now, Vlado's story was totally explosive because what he's saying is that there is a serial killer that is on the loose in this town.
My question is, how come the police didn't figure that out? Like, you had 2 other murders in this small city.
I heard about if you don't have any
real
connection, real proof.
Yeah, because cops. That's true. Yeah,
they're all cleaning lady. What do you say? The serial killer cleaning lady.
You need more. You need more than that. You need more than that for a case. But I mean, like I said, a reporter can just report and say whatever. But but the police should be looking into that though, at least. Like,
or probably they didn't say anything for a reason.
Oh, that's true. They never tell us everything, as they shouldn't. They don't want to alert the.
They cannot put stuff out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The serial killer will see and leave,
or he'll see and change his behavior.
Saying is that there is a serial killer that is on the loose in this town. But this story was also highly explosive because Vlado spoke very critically about the police who were involved in this investigation.
Mm.
Specifically, he pointed out that the '05 and '07 murders of those two other women, those had been totally mishandled because arrests had been made in at least one of those cases, and clearly whoever they arrested was innocent here. And so the police
he's
just
doing the
totally
most.
dropped the ball.
Oh, okay, so he's doing the most.
Yeah.
Like, okay, no, you're not just only trying to find the killer. You're discrediting, but you might be freeing an innocent man. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm for some reason I'm starting to think that he did it. I don't know why. I don't know.
Clearly, whoever they arrested was innocent here. And so the police just totally dropped the ball, at least in Vlado's opinion. And when the police read Vlado's story, they were very upset at him
Yeah,
because
they
he was
should.
so critical of them. However, the police also did see that Vlado had managed to uncover a lot of new details from all of his interviews with witnesses.
Hey, like, look, man, you talking hella shit. Wait, hold on. You on to something though? When you said cleanly, I'm just shit. Okay, you actually on to something though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy.
And people
Right,
had
yeah,
managed
like,
to uncover a lot of new details from all of his interviews with witnesses and people in the neighborhood that did seem to paint a picture of this potentially really being a serial killer, not individual isolated killings. And so the police, based on Vlado's story, would actually begin investigating a serial killer in their midst. They linked all three murders and they began basically a new investigation. However, at the same time they began this new investigation, Vlado began to notice that he was being tailed all the time by police.
Yeah.
He would be out in town doing his
As you
job,
should.
you know, reporting.
I was actually surprised they haven't done it yet because, like I said, first off, I think he did it. But thing number two, though, if you keep messing with the police, at least here in America,
I don't know
when you mess with the police like this type of way in America, they will do exactly what they're doing right now. They'll tell you, they'll pull you over every time you're driving somewhere. They're gonna make sure all your shit's up to date every time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All the time by police. He would be out in town doing his job, you know, reporting and interviewing people, and there'd just be a police officer standing somewhere in the distance watching him. But Vlado had anticipated that no matter what, he was likely going to face some sort of blowback from the police. And so he just kind of accepted that they were going to watch him and maybe try to intimidate him, but it wasn't going to bother him because he had done his job. He had reported the story the best that he could. And if they wanted to watch him from a distance, they could do that. By early June, so about 2.
That sounds like thoughts of an innocent man. If you ain't did nothing, keep watching. I ain't did nothing.
I mean, that's my job.
Yeah.
Telling stories. That's what I think. That's what I.
Yeah. I was talking about.
That's my conclusion on what I.
Yeah, I was talking about the whole serial killer aspect, though. Like, if he's in his head, like, watch me, I don't care. Then I'm like, oh, maybe my theory is completely wrong. Maybe he didn't do it because
maybe he did, but he know how to move.
He said he prepared for it
because
he said
he know police means he had a person inside.
Yep. Oh, that's true. Maybe they told
him. He know how to move.
That is true.
He know how they move.
Let's get it.
And if they wanted to watch him from a distance, they could do that. By early June, so about 2 weeks after Savannah had been found murdered, the police, in this new serial killer investigation they were doing, had narrowed down their suspect pool, which was in the hundreds, down to just 3 people. And they felt like they were very close to making an arrest.
Right.
About a month later, on June 20th, so by this point, Vlado is still being trailed by police all the time, but the police have not come out publicly and said anything about the serial killer case. They're just continuing their investigation. Yeah. But on this day, June 20th, Vlado's editor at the newspaper got a call from a police officer telling the editor they were about to make an arrest in the serial killer case. And as soon as their conversation ended, the editor called Vlado to tell him the news. But when he called Vlado, Vlado didn't pick up, which was very unusual. Vlado always answered his calls. And the editor was also thinking to himself how strange it was that this officer had contacted him and not Vlado. Like, why aren't you going to the guy writing the stories and telling him about this new development? Why are you coming to me? The editor would continue to try calling Vlado several more times, but Vlado never answered. And so ultimately, the editor just kind of assumed that Vlado must be busy, interviewing someone, or maybe more likely, he had already learned about this imminent arrest, and he was on scene, ready to capture in real time this arrest that was about to take place.
Oh, he definitely on scene, capturing the arrest for sure. He definitely on scene.
Yeah,
definitely. You is the scene for sure.
Meanwhile, on a quiet street in Casevo,
that's crazy too. If I'm right on this one, we just had a whole thing where we said this is the first episode we saw where we haven't predicted it.
That's
in the middle.
true.
I hope I'm wrong, actually.
This arrest that was about to take place. Meanwhile, on a quiet street in Casevo, the police had surrounded this very modest 2-story home that was very overgrown out front. It was surrounded by tall fir trees, and all the windows had heavy drapes covering them up. And then once the police felt like they had totally surrounded this building, a team of officers walked up onto the porch and knocked on the door and yelled out that they were police, and whoever was inside would come out with their hands up. And for a moment, it was just totally silent and tense. And then the police on the porch heard footsteps inside the house. They had their guns ready to go. And then the door slowly opened up. And this man, who seemed very unthreatening and kind of confused, stepped out onto the porch. And the police immediately arrested him and took him away. A few minutes later, back at the newspaper headquarters, Vlado's editor got another phone call. And when he answered, it was the same police officer who had called before to warn him about this upcoming arrest. Except this time, the officer was calling to say the arrest had been made, they had caught their serial killer, and then he told the editor the name of the person they arrested. And when the editor heard the name, he dropped the phone in shock. The serial killer was Vlado. It would turn out that Vlado appeared.
Sorry, Mr. Ballin, man. I did it again. I think,
but let's see. It's still
I think I found a way through your storytelling to. I think I did.
Yeah.
Because I've been predicting these.
Yeah, but what's the connection?
Yeah, they said it's revenge. So why are you out there killing 60 old women?
Lady?
Yeah, I don't know. You got a weird kink fetish.
The serial killer was Vlado. It would turn out that Vlado appeared very professional and calm on the outside, but inside he was full of rage, specifically at his mother, who he viewed as this terrible, cruel person. And after she died in 2002, Vlado became obsessed with this idea of getting revenge on his deceased mother. And the way he decided he would do that would be by killing random women who just kind of looked and seemed an awful lot like his mother, i.e., they were poor, older, and cleaning ladies. His 3 victims, Mitra in 2005, Lubitsa in 2007, and Zivana in 2008, had all personally known Vlado's mother. And so Vlado had actually used that connection to gain each of his victims' trust. And then once he had their trust, he would lure them away to strangle, stab, and beat them to death. In Vlado's explosive newspaper story, he lied about a whole bunch of things just to throw the police off. Like, for example, he made up that he spoke to a witness who claimed to have seen Zivana get into a car with 2 men right before she vanished. Vlado did not see that. That was just a total lie designed to confuse the police.
Right.
Vlado had also been the one to plant that story on the radio about Zivana's son, Zoran, being in this terrible accident. That had caused Zivana to run out of her house and be vulnerable to be scooped up and killed, which is exactly what Vlado wanted. He had called the radio station and told them about this accident, and because he had previously worked for that radio station, they believed him without doing any fact checking and broadcast the story. And so really that whole radio broadcast was just a very intentional trap by Vlado to kill Zivana. But what ultimately got Vlado caught was in the article he wrote.
He said what eventually got him caught. How about you writing about the whole fucking thing that you're doing in the third person? Like, that's what got you caught. It's a serial killer out here. Like, yeah, you motherfucker. Like, that's like that's like O.J. Simpson when he was like, I didn't kill her, but if I did, this is how I would have did it. Like, come on, bro. What are we doing? What are we doing, fam? Like,
you're supposed to never do the story and you were out. Like,
yeah, you got away with 2 of them. They didn't even know that. They didn't even connect the other 2 murders.
You connected.
Yeah, right? they didn't even know.
You give them the reason to look.
In true serial killer fashion, you taunted the police. Like, that's how all the serial killers do. Like the Hannibals and they always
loved you.
Exactly. So that's the first place you got to look. The person who's close to the case. That's crazy. I knew
kills Zivana. But what ultimately got Vlado caught was in the article he wrote, he left in some really specific details that the police had not revealed to the public.
Mm.
And so basically, by including these in the story, it meant Vlado had an inside scoop into what was really going on.
Right.
Like, for example, Vlado said that all 3 of these women who had been killed by the serial killer had been strangled to death by telephone cords that were left at the scene. But again, the police had not revealed that to the public. And so when they read the story, they actually became very suspicious of Vlado and thought he could be
That's why they
involved
were
in
following
these
him, not
murders.
because they were
And
mad.
so when
Like,
Vlado
had people inside the police, so
They don't know that though. That's why it's called a source. Like, you know what I'm saying? They don't know that he knows somebody, but
true.
but like they couldn't. It could have got uncovered later on when they arrested him if he didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? But he did it. So that's
Makes sense.
of Vlado and thought he could be involved in these murders. And so when Vlado felt like the police were trailing him just to intimidate him, in reality, the police were trailing Vlado because they thought he could be the murderer. And eventually, when they got a DNA sample from Vlado, it was confirmed that their suspicions were right. He was the killer.
DNA.
After Vlado's arrest, he was immediately charged with 2 of the 3 murders, and the police were getting ready to charge him with the 3rd, and they were even looking at a 4th victim, potentially, that maybe Vlado had killed as well, but they weren't entirely sure yet. But on June 23rd, so just 3 days after Vlado's arrest, he died in jail in a way that really didn't make any sense. Vlado had drowned in a small bucket of water inside of his jail cell, while there were 3 other people inside of that jail cell with him who all said they didn't notice it happening. Officially, Vlado's death was ruled a suicide, and after his death, all of the murder investigations were closed.
What I'm gonna say is, for the wrap up, if this man were to do the things that he has done to my mother, I want every one of those people in the cell to stand on business like that. Yeah, he drowned. We ain't see shit.
I was sleeping.
Big sleep too. I worked out heavy that day. I was super tired. Had a big spread. Had, you know what I mean, some big ramen. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got the itis. I was big sleepy.
Yeah.
Big sleepy. But yeah, but what do you think about this one though? This was wild. This thing.
Yeah, but I still. What's the reason? Like, you hate your mother, and why kill them?
I'm gonna tell you something. Like I said earlier in the segment, we don't think like that, so we'll never understand.
I'm trying to,
I don't get it either. I'm
trying to, but like, I don't see like.
Because you don't hate your parents like I said, you don't think like that. So
no, but even if I hate a person so much, but I will kill that person.
Right. Well, but
not somebody else who does the same job or poor, like the other person is poor, like.
Right. But you're not crazy, so so like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe in his mind, when he sees a cleaning woman, he sees his mother.
This is his mother, and
because remember she's gone, so maybe he sees her, like, and that rage overtakes him. Man, this man did some elaborate ass shit. This man called the radio station and fabricated some shit, and then had her son's name.
That's a lot.
Like, you went out of your way to get her. Like
that's a lot.
That's crazy. Like I guess it was her time, because that shit didn't work.
You knew she didn't have a car.
Yeah, so you knew exactly. That's crazy. You planned for her to actually freak out and run to the fucking hospital.
Yeah.
You planned that, like, you know what I mean? And then when she did, you was right around the corner, like, hey, I can tell you something about your son, and then that's crazy. What I want to say is, for all you parents out there, be nicer to your kids, or beat them less, or something, because this is nothing but a clear case of a person who has some trauma as a child and didn't get no healing. I don't know what the trauma was, but this person didn't get no healing. Like, because if you're seeing your mother and other people, like, and your first thought is to kill them because you didn't get the chance to while she was here,
there is something really strong going on.
Yeah,
it's not a normal hate.
Nah, not normal hate. Hell, you killed 3 people, 4 maybe, like, possibly 5. Really?
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. But yeah,
wow.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to say is thank God that's one serial killer we know that is not in America, and he's been unalived. He unalived himself. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any tears shed or, you know what I mean, about that one. At least not on my end. But thank you for tuning in with us on that reaction. It's Ink T to the G, and I'm here with the woo. Ain't we? We in here. Team Hallenzano on this thing, man. And thank you for tuning in with us. So like I always say, man, like, comment, subscribe, share to be aware, and we out of here.